Hey guys, and welcome to this session entitled How to Market a One-of-a-Kind Listing. That is a unique listing or a home that is traditionally difficult to sell. So regardless of what time of year it is, whether it's the middle of summer where a lot of homes typically sell, or the winter time when homes typically do not sell, these types of listings take a little bit longer and a little bit more creativity to get sold. Today we're going to take you through what to look for here and exactly what to do, some different tactics you can deploy to getting these kinds of listings sold. So let's talk about the characteristics of a unique listing or a harder to sell listing. What are some of those homes? Well, it could be a home that faces a busy street. It could be that the master bedroom is not ideally located within the home. Maybe it's on the same side as all the other rooms. Maybe it is upstairs versus downstairs, or vice versa. The room itself could face a busy street, but nothing else could. So there are some considerations there as well. It could be a home on an odd-shaped lot. It could be a diamond-shaped lot, or just an irregularly shaped lot where the normal home buyer really wouldn't see what you could do there. The next is maybe it doesn't have a backyard. Maybe it's a zero-lot home, or the front yard looks just absolutely gorgeous, but there is really nothing to speak of in the backyard except your 8-foot fence, and you can still see all of your neighbors. So maybe you're next to power lines, or a school, or a commercial development, something that would otherwise detract a typical buyer from that home. It could be the house is over customized, and this is probably the most common example of a unique listing or harder to sell listing. If you are like some people and have built a custom home your own, you may think like a lot of other folks do, and that is, look, this is my home. I can design it however I want, and the fact that I have a 10-car garage is the next person's problem. I want to live in this home the way I want. Well, the challenge is that even though you may not think that you're ever going to move from that beautiful custom home, sometimes that decision is made for you, and so the ability to sell that home after you move out becomes that much more difficult. Maybe it has historic status. It might be a home that is over 100 years old, or whatever the historic status rules are in your town, and which makes it all the much more difficult to sell. Maybe the size of that home exceeds the average square footage for the area. So this is also very common. And what you typically see is that you can never get a true comp if you're only measuring price per square foot. So if all the other homes, the average square footage of the homes are 2,800 square feet, and the listing that you have to sell is 4,000 square feet, well, that home is going to only appeal to a specific buyer, number one, but number two, you're going to have to really take it on the chin regarding the price per square foot, because the actual sale price needs to be in line with the other homes in the area. Maybe you have too much land. Maybe you have too little land. So anything like that would create a unique listing. Maybe the home isn't updated. This is very common as well. And so every other home on the block is been updated, or what is even more common is that your listing is a pre-existing home in a subdivision where they are still building new construction. That is a very common occurrence. All right, so what's the big deal? Well, the issue is that if you take a unique listing, then the funnel of buyers is going to be very narrow. Any home that doesn't appeal to most of the people most of the time is obviously going to have a smaller pool of buyers, and is going to be a little bit more difficult to sell. The second is, it's difficult to broadly market to the masses. Now we can, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but the appeal is just not going to be there. Next is you won't be able to find a lot of comps, and so the appraisal is at risk, not to mention how to price the home. And a seller's input is probably this much more acute or that much more a factor when it comes into a home like this, because typically they're going to think that their home is worth more than it probably is, and your ability to be able to back up a pricing recommendation with other comps is going to be unlikely. All right? And then next, how do you sell yourself to the owner that you can even sell this asset? And that's going to be difficult because it is going to take some creativity. So if your marketing plan only includes things like put a sign in the yard, host a couple of open houses, put some flyers in the home or outside in the yard, and doesn't go much beyond that, you are going to be challenged. So you need to come to the equation with an already thought out plan based on the configuration of this home. And then lastly, traditional marketing methods might fall flat, like open houses. So why would I say that? Well, if you do what typical realtors do, which is take a lot of pictures of the home and write a great description, buyers will look at that and perhaps understand that it is a rather unique home and be turned off by one or two things that are in the home and might not even show up for an open house. So be mindful of that. So mission one, how do you get these homes sold? Well, do your homework. Research whether a potential buyer could repurpose or remodel the home in a way that that it's currently lacking. And so if it has some kind of configuration, maybe it was used for, I don't know, a children's daycare at one point, and there's lots of different rooms and it's not typically an open concept. Does the town allow permits to repurpose the home or reconfigure it in a way that is more suitable for a typical buyer? The best thing to do, ask the seller directly, who do you think the ideal buyer is for this home? He or she may surprise you. You may hear some things that are completely different than what your perception is. So after all, they are the ones that have lived in the home. They're going to tell you why they bought the home. If it's not a new build, they're going to have very real reasons as to why they purchased that home. Those are the things that you're going to want to accentuate and bring to light. Okay. Next is observe the neighbors or the neighborhood and other homes or neighborhoods with a similar home and play to those strengths. So in other words, if it is something as simple as it's a home that faces a busy street or the back faces a busy street, look at other neighborhoods or homes that have that same uniqueness. You might get some ideas with regards to how those homes were priced, what things were accentuated to try and sell that home. Look at the description of those homes. Is that home near a school? And if that is the case, then typically that selling feature overshadows everything else. But there are going to be other homes that are kind of sort of similar to the one that you're selling in some form or fashion. So do your homework, do your research, and be able to bring to the listing presentation, you know, look, here are some other homes. They're not necessarily right in our neighborhood, but they are similar to your home in these ways. Here is how these homes got sold. Here is how many days they sat on the market. And here's how I would propose selling your home. All right. Mission 2, reach a broad base, but target a specific audience. So make no mistake about it. Distribution is key here. This is not a, your cookie cutter vanilla listing in the middle of XYZ subdivision. This is going to appeal to a very unique buyer. So you have to almost take a shotgun approach in your distribution. And what I mean by distribution is how many shelves in that grocery store can you get your box of cereal on, right? So Is it just the internet? Is it just the MLS? Probably not. All right. So, which is a good segue to my next point. Is it so unique that you want a newspaper article done about it or a blog post done about it? You've got to increase your web presence through search engine optimization as a means to get as many eyeballs to this home as you can. However, you have to identify a clear market and a clear subset of people that this home is going to appeal to and saturate that market wherever these folks are. Okay, so if it is farm and ranch or a horse farm, that is going to appeal to a very specific buyer. It also has characteristics that would appeal to a lot of other folks, but typically the buyer that is going to purchase this home is going to own horses or own a business of taking care of horses, and you need to go where those buyers are. Simply putting that out on the MLS is not going to do it. You're going to want to go to the local feed stores, to the local equestrian centers. You're going to want to hit up agents that specialize in that market. So again, getting more creative and getting as many eyeballs to that asset as possible. Mission 3, invest in the listing to showcase its unique selling points. So make no mistake about it. If you choose to take a listing that is unique, expect to spend more. It is up to you whether or not you want to include those costs into your commission structure or compensation structure within your listing agreement. Perhaps you write in something where the seller not only pays for the commission, but kicks in X amount of dollars to market it in a fashion that you deem effective. So do not be afraid to overspend on staging and curb appeal, and as well as photos. And I know I mentioned that a couple of points down, but let's just stop there for a second. So regardless of whether your listing is unique or not, it is a proven fact that if you do things like paint the front door, that will increase your value and increase curb appeal. If you immaculately landscape the front of the house and acreage, that is going to increase your appraisal and increase the likelihood of someone purchasing that home. So once you get into the home, it needs to be completely decluttered and staged appropriately. Okay, and the next point kind of speaks to that. Go room by room and make sure each of those rooms tells a story and communicates why you would use that room. Okay, don't just leave a room empty without staging. Don't just have the seller throw all of their empty boxes into one room. You've got to have each room tell a story. Okay, so every home has at least one over-the-top selling feature that will overshadow all other negatives about the home. I think of my own home when I bought it. You know, now it's 15 years ago. Absentee owner. The inside needed a lot of updating. Flooring was a mess. There were animals that obviously lived in that home. The lawn was full of weeds. But the one selling feature about the home that sold it for us was the backyard. It was an absolute oasis. Has some great decking. It had a pool. We have since taken the pool out, but the backyard showed really well. And so we knew that that one feature was going to make it for us in that house. Everything else we could, you know, refloor, recarpet, repaint, update on our own. So every home has this, and it may not be so obvious right now because that seller may not be using the home in the way that really fully showcases all of its positives. Okay, remember, a builder built that home at one point, somehow, for some reason. And over the years, the owner may have glossed over those reasons. So it is up to us as realtors to bring out and maybe resuscitate why the original floor plan was what it was and what the true assets to that home is. Okay, photos, lots of them from various angles. Even though it may not be a quote-unquote luxury listing, don't be afraid to incorporate drone photography, videos, anything sensory. Okay, it might be a personal tour, it might be a tour set to music, anything that brings to light over the web the true experience of that home is what you're going to want to spend money on. Don't just hire a $79 photographer to go in there and shoot 24 stills of a unique listing. Anybody can do that. Okay, you need to do more than that. As I mentioned, the drone photography, perhaps a narrated video clip, but you also need to be there when the photography takes place and direct the photographer to pick up on angles and things, attributes about that home that really showcase the home. Now be careful of deceptive advertising. You don't want to make a room seem 10 times larger than it really is, but you need to be there for that photography shoot to make sure that they're picking up on every positive thing about that home. Identify the negatives and downplay or accentuate its positives and uniqueness. Completely neutralize the home's contents and declutter. Okay, so that goes without saying, but the rule of thumb is that if you could empty all the contents of the home and start over and restage the home, what would you include in each room? And you've got to educate your sellers to that effect too. Okay, they need to be told that that home needs to look like it's going to leap off the pages of Architectural Digest. Okay, and in that context, it's got to be neutral and decluttered and get rid of the pets. All right, mission 4, leverage your professional experience and your contacts. So each MLS has statistics, some real detailed, some not, but use those stats to prove your recommendation as a real estate professional on things like price, staging, days on market expectations, and how to actually market the listing. Okay, the most important thing is going to be the days on market. This is, unless all the stars are aligned and you're in the right place at the right time, it is going to typically take a little bit longer to sell. Okay, so this is a great way to challenge yourself to showcase your skills and expertise. Know who else sells these kinds of properties and personally reach out to see if they have any buyers. So whether it's something like a farm and ranch or a luxury listing, you need to be familiar with agents that typically do these listings. The best way is to look in that neighborhood and look at the solds in the MLS and see what agent was able to get that listing sold. Reach out to that person. That will make their day. They will feel very flattered that you are coming to them as the expert to get their opinion on how to sell that home. The greatest compliment you can give somebody is the question of, what is your opinion? Okay, so don't be afraid to reach out to local realtors to get those questions answered. Host a broker open house and invite agents who sell unique listings. Ask for their feedback. So similar to the prior point, except if you want to hold a broker open specifically for those agents that that specialize in this niche, I would strongly suggest doing that. I would also strongly suggest hosting an open house for the neighbors. And I know that that's a common tactic, and usually the angle there is you can get more leads that way. However, in this instance, you want to know the neighbor's opinion on how best to sell that house. And you can typically pick up on different pieces of feedback based on what they're going to tell you, and so they'll give you hints indirectly on how to get that home sold. Okay. Next is reverse prospecting. So obviously, when you have a listing in our MLS, a little button appears at the bottom of your screen that says reverse prospecting, and that enables you to see all of the real estate agents, not their clients, but the agents who have clients that are on an auto email for homes that fit your description. And that, I think, is the holy grail in this instance, because you already obviously have clients, customers out there that are asking for listings like yours. And up until now, all you've done is put a sign in the yard and turn it on the MLS. Well, in my opinion, and you can email to these folks, but because these are specific buyers, I would reach out to the agent that has the client and make it painfully obvious that you have this listing. Now, mind you, the agent and their client should be getting an email every time, when your listing came on the market. But don't assume, don't assume that it may have gone to junk. Reach out to the agent directly and see what it's going to take to make a deal. And I'll go one step further. If you get a showing, I would do the exact same thing. Call the agent and ask specifically, what is it going to take to have your client make an offer? You don't need to go so far as to say, well, my seller's motivated, unless the seller's given you permission to say that. You're not allowed to say that. But make no mistake about it. The showings that you have are going to be people that truly want to see the home. And they're going to be few and far between. And so I would hang on to those leads like no tomorrow. So call those showings agents and ask specifically, I see that your client saw the home. What did they think? What is it going to take to make a deal? Reach out to builders, developers, tradespeople. You want to expose this listing to as many people as possible, and preferably those people who are in the business of being in front of other real estate customers. So, handyman, HVAC folks, again, tradespeople, plumbers, electricians. Hopefully you have a list of clients already, or vendor partners like this. Reach out to them. You never know who they're going to encounter that may be in the market to buy your home. I would also send them your pictures or video, preferably a video, because they're easier to consume. But try and hype it up and choose that one thing that you know is going to sell that home. And I'm going to tell you why. That is going to stick and resonate with that vendor partner. If you make a big deal about a spiral staircase in the kitchen that leads up to this great game room, and there's this 55-inch TV, and you can, you get the idea. Paint the picture. That is going to stick with that vendor, and you never know. They may come in contact with someone that that might be a great fit for. So don't be afraid to do that. All right, so do not be afraid to take these harder to sell listings. They can be a great way to showcase your expertise and your marketing ability. All right, until next time, go get them.